Hello, and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles. This is a platform where we share stories of love, loss, and the twists and turns that life can bring. Please subscribe to support us and stay tuned for more captivating chronicles. I'm a 43-year-old man, and my wife is 40. We've been married for 16 years, and we have 2 children, a 14-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. Our journey together started off rocky, but we managed to overcome those tough years and come out stronger. We married young, and looking back, I wonder if we were a bit too idealistic, believing we could conquer any obstacle in our path. Our careers have been successful. My wife is a manager at a major advertising company, a role she's held for 3 years, while I've been in engineering for 7 years. Our jobs provide us with a comfortable lifestyle. We've always been a close-knit family, making sure to create wonderful memories for our kids, no matter how busy life got. I take pride in being a good husband and father, though I'm not without my flaws. Recently, I made a shocking discovery that shook me to my core. It turns out that my wife has been involved in a long-term affair. The signs were there. Over the past 2 years, she became increasingly distant, seemingly disinterested in anything I did. She started comparing me to her boss, constantly mentioning how he handled things better. She criticized my lack of initiative, especially when it came to planning romantic outings or making her feel special. Her response was often frustratingly vague: "You should already know what to do." Feeling lost, I turned to research, bought books, and sought advice, desperate to reignite our love life. However, no matter what I attempted, it was met with lukewarm appreciation or outright disappointment. This wasn't the woman I had known for years, and I felt a growing need to fix whatever was wrong. Little did I know that it wasn't me who needed fixing. We had become close friends with her boss and his wife, bonding over shared family outings and get-togethers. Our children got along well, and it seemed like a natural friendship. Little did I know that this closeness was a cover for my wife's affair with her boss, a secret that had been hidden right under my nose. I found solace in confiding in her boss about our marital problems. He seemed like a genuinely helpful guy, and his advice gave me some hope. Little did I know that this connection would later unravel into something far more complicated. Back to the discovery. My emotional fatigue from my wife's constant demands for self-improvement or the marriage being over had taken a toll on me. It was bewildering because, until then, I had believed we had a great marriage. One fateful night, I noticed her laughing and giggling while texting someone. We were in bed together, and curiosity got the best of me. As I leaned in to take a peek, she violently pulled away, her anger palpable. She demanded to know what I was doing. I explained that I wanted to see what was so funny, and she tersely informed me that it was none of my business before retreating to the bathroom. That moment was when I began to suspect that something was amiss, although I had no concrete proof. The following day, I made the mistake of confronting her directly about my suspicions. She reacted with fury and vehemently denied any wrongdoing. Desperate for the truth, I asked to see her phone, but she adamantly refused. It wasn't until later that night, with great reluctance, that she handed over her phone. However, almost every text message to specific individuals had been deleted. It was apparent because some conversations seemed inconsistent, while others were absurd. I returned her phone without further confrontation, biding my time. A month later, I managed to enlist the help of a friend to check her phone and recover deleted texts. By this point, she had gotten another phone and hardly used the one she gave me. Some texts were recovered, and through fragments, I finally had proof of the affair with her boss, as you might have guessed. I knew that confronting her immediately would likely lead to her finding a way to deny it, so I held off. I was a wreck during this time, consumed by thoughts of how it would impact our kids. The situation was agonizing, and I even broke down in front of my friend. Despite everything, I wasn't ready to give up on our marriage. 3 days later, I bought a book titled How to Help Your Spouse Heal from an Affair. It may sound naive, but I hoped that if I gave it to my wife, she would come to her senses and end the affair. I desperately wanted my wife back and to save our marriage. I had planned to talk to her that Saturday to work things out, but she informed me that they had an emergency at work and not to wait up for her. Naturally, I called her workplace on that day to verify her story, only to find that they weren't even open on Saturdays. I tried calling her phone, but there was no answer. She finally came home at 2 in the morning on Sunday, immediately taking a shower before climbing into bed. I couldn't contain my frustration and asked her why she was so late. She dodged the question, reminding me that she had already told me not to wait for her. I had had enough. I didn't give her the book I had bought, and I was suffering, but she seemed indifferent to my pain. In my desperation for some stability and answers, I reached out to her boss's wife to see if she knew anything. I don't regret that decision to this day. She was just as shocked as I was when she found out. She wanted to confront her husband, but I cautioned her that he would likely lie and try to cover it up, much like my wife had done. We decided to meet at her house to discuss the situation, and I shared the little proof we had. She wanted more evidence, so we both agreed to gather more on our respective sides and compare notes. I started snooping on my wife more diligently, and she did the same with her husband. It was shockingly easy for her to find undeniable proof. Her husband was so arrogant that he hadn't even bothered to delete the texts on his phone between him and my wife. The bits of text I had found earlier finally made sense, and we had a complete picture of their 2-year affair. The boss's wife and I were furious. Revenge crossed our minds, but we decided against sinking to their level. We both drew up divorce papers around the same time and were dead set on ending our marriages. Our spouses were clueless about the fact that we knew about their affair, and we continued to play our parts. By the time we had all our legal affairs in order, they were at it again. This time, with the boss's wife's collaboration, we knew exactly where and how to serve them with the divorce papers. We even knew which hotel they had booked for their rendezvous weekend. I personally went to the hotel with the sheriff. I waited nervously in the lobby as the sheriff took care of the logistics. My wife was called down from her room, dressed in a bathrobe, and panic-stricken. She demanded to know what I was doing there. It was a considerable distance from our home, but not too far. The sheriff asked for confirmation of her identity, and in her confused state, she affirmed it. That's when she was served with the divorce papers, and our tumultuous chapter together took another painful turn. Seeing the shocked look on my wife's face when she was served with divorce papers was undeniably satisfying, but I didn't want to gloat or rub it in. Instead, I decided to walk away, knowing that the job was done. However, she didn't let me leave so easily. She grabbed my arm, pulling me back, demanding to know what this all meant. I told her straightforwardly, "You had an affair, and I'm leaving you." It was as simple as that. Her reaction was explosive. She began screaming at me and gripping my arm even harder. The sheriff had to step in to tell her to release me, and eventually, she did, breaking down into tears and pleading that she could explain that I had it all wrong. I was seething with anger, so I left quickly, heading home. I later learned that my wife had informed her boss about the situation, and he rushed home, only to be served with divorce papers as well. We hadn't given them time to get their heads straight. It was a blindsided move, much like what they had done to us. Now, my divorce is on track to be finalized in a couple of months, but my wife and her boss are both fighting it tooth and nail. They claim they never intended to leave their spouses, that it was just a physical affair, and that other couples have had worse affairs and managed to salvage their marriages. They're hoping for a chance to un-F the situation. I've asked my wife what she expects the outcome to be, and she says she's going with the flow, that her actions were completely out of character and that she's not that person anymore. But I'm not so sure. She called me bitter and resentful, unable to look past the negativity. She did apologize for it later, but I can't help but think that's how she truly feels. I still maintain contact with the boss's wife, and my wife absolutely despises it. She believes I might have revenge on my mind or that the boss's wife is influencing my decisions. She's repeatedly asked me to initiate no contact with her, just as she did with her boss. I've told her I think she's crazy. We haven't done anything wrong, So why should I respect her opinions now? Honestly, I think I'm done. I've lost respect for her, and she refuses to let go, actively trying to engage with me about her thoughts and processes regarding the affair. To me, they all sound like excuses, so I don't entertain her attempts anymore. I've been grappling with my wife's request for therapy, but I've read stories where therapists have seemingly blamed the victim, and it made me reluctant. I thought, hell no. She also suggested reading infidelity books together, and I couldn't see the point if we're headed for divorce anyway. She's expressed a desire to be intimate, but I told her it felt like manipulation, and I wasn't going to be swayed by it. She insisted it wasn't manipulation, she just wanted to show me how much she loved me. I corrected her and said, loved me, emphasizing the past tense. People around me, including my mom, are frustrated with my stance. They argue that people make mistakes and that my wife realizes her love for me through her mistakes. They believe I shouldn't shut the door on reconciliation too quickly. But I've been firm in my response, telling them I won't be anyone's fallback plan. I'm caught in a web of conflicting emotions. There's still love there, but it's tangled up with anger and hurt. I can't help but wonder if I'm being unnecessarily cruel to her. She's making a genuine effort to make amends, but I find it hard to care anymore. The question that haunts me is whether I should reconsider the divorce. People are warning me that I might be moving too quickly and that I'll regret it. I'm stuck in a sea of uncertainty, not knowing what's real and what's not. I want to clarify that my wife and I are in a somewhat stable place right now, but it's crucial to understand that this doesn't mean we're reconciling. I'm still determined to go through with the divorce. My wife, on the other hand, is begging for another chance and is going to great lengths to earn it. However, I can't easily forgive a 2-year affair, it's just too much to move past. We've attended a few therapy sessions together, not because I want to save the marriage deep down, but because I still care for her. One of those sessions was particularly helpful. It made me realize that my wife is genuinely remorseful. She hasn't handled the aftermath of her affair perfectly, but she's been making a considerable effort. The second therapy session, though, was a disaster. My wife got upset with me for continuously contacting the boss's wife, who we'll call Robin. She was afraid I might seek revenge. It was one of the angriest moments throughout this ordeal, and we argued extensively afterward because I refused to comply with her request to cut off contact with Robin. We resolved it when I promised there would be no revenge affair. While I don't owe her anything, she's still my wife until the divorce is finalized, and I want to uphold my commitments. I've continued attending a few more therapy sessions with her, not because I'm secretly hoping to salvage the marriage, but because I want to see her progress myself and, if necessary, participate in the process. It's worth noting that the therapist we've been seeing is an individual and marriage therapist. Despite our divorce proceedings, Robin is also leaving her husband, who we'll call S-Head. He's resisting the divorce just as fiercely as my wife, and we do confide in each other on those difficult days. However, I want to emphasize that there's no affair happening between us, we're just on friendly terms. Robin is a strong and independent woman who doesn't tolerate any nonsense. My kids are doing okay, they understand that our divorce doesn't mean we love them any less. While they don't want the divorce, they comprehend why it's necessary for us, and we've discussed it with them in an age-appropriate manner. My wife no longer works at the advertisement company where the affair took place, she resigned shortly after I served her with divorce papers. According to her, she's had no contact with S-Head and reached out to online forums for advice on saving the marriage. I've spent some time reading stories here, and initially, I couldn't fathom why people stayed with adulterers. However, seeing my wife's efforts to become a better person, I understand the temptation. She's not a monster, she's just flawed and made terrible choices from which she's learning to grow. My wife has offered me everything under the sun for a second chance, even proposing a post-nuptial agreement. Strangely, I wasn't entirely opposed to it, but it would be a long road for me to even consider it as a possibility. She seems genuinely willing, but I'm not convinced it would benefit either of us in the end. A significant part of me wants this divorce as a fleeting sense of justice. It's the only justice I can achieve without stooping to the level of an adulterer. Lastly, my mom and I have reconciled after I revealed more details about my wife's affair. Now she's absolutely furious with my wife, having learned the full extent of what transpired. My wife's fear of a revenge affair has become a significant source of tension between us. It's clear that she's deeply insecure, especially when she compares herself to Robin, who is younger, successful, and attractive. This insecurity leads her to worry that I might seek revenge by cheating on her, a notion that I find both infuriating and hypocritical. It's baffling to me that she can lecture me about the two wrongs don't make a right principle when she herself had an affair. While she's not entirely wrong in her concern, I have no intention of following through with such revenge. Her paranoia about it only adds to the frustration.